chapter 9. You guys tell me we're on verse 10. For those who are listening online, this is the first 7 seconds. If I'm wrong, then you'll have a repeat. Okay. V'yei kol asher asa, and everything that they, so they heard everything that they did to the Shnei Malchei Amorit, to the 2 kings of the Amorites, the Sheba Yordan, that was in the on the other side of the Jordan. L'sichon Melech Cheshbon, also they heard who are these kings? L'sichon Melech Cheshbon, L'og Melech Bashan, and to Og, the king of Bashan, Sheba Ashtarot, that was in Ashtarot. So they had heard the people saying, we came from a faraway land because we heard of all of this information. Vayomra Eleinu Zikanenu, and our elders said to us, B'chol Yosh Be'eretzenu Limor, not only all of our elders, but also all of the inhabitants of our lands. They told us, saying, Kechu b'yedechem seder l'derech. Take in your hands food or provisions for the way. The seder is an interesting term in itself, because it means provisions. We understand that. But when it comes, you could also have said, ochel, take food. It doesn't have to be seder. So it's interesting. Sad also it means hunt. I'm hunting something. Okay? But it's just and that's probably why they call it seder. If you go back to the Torah and you go to the story of Isaac and what's his name, Esav. So what does he say? He says, go out and hunt and make me the tzayid, make me that hunt, prepare for me that food, those provisions. Okay, so it's the same word, and so it's interesting that they are using that word here, take seidah, for the derech, for the way. U'lechu l'kratam, and you go. This is a command form, and go to meet them referring to the Jews. V'amartem aleihem, and you will say to them, you will say to them, Avdeichem anachnu, we are your servants. V'atakir tu lanu brit, and now make a covenant with us. Okay, so they're just telling, remember what's going on here. Joshua is asking, where are you coming from? Because they have been exposed to some level that they're asking for friendship, they're asking for all these different things when it doesn't make sense, and the people were arguing, how do we know you're not from amongst us, living in our land? So when they found out that didn't work, they run right to Joshua and they started the negotiation with him. So he's saying, where are you from? So they have to go through this whole story again, saying, let me tell you a little story. And we heard about and that's why they're saying, we heard about all of your the fights with the other kings, and as a result, our town or our place told us we should come out to you, and they told us these provisions. And then he said, now look, they're saying, look, zelach menucham hitztiyadnu oto. This food that we brought was hot, mibatenu, from our houses. Biyom seitenu lalechet alechem, on the day that we left to come to you. V'ata hine yavesh, and now it's dried. It's all dried up. V'hayat nukudim, and it is like toasted or something. I don't know how else to say that. How do they translate?
Toasted.
Toasted, okay, fine. Wow. So it's dried and toasted. Ve'elu nodot hayayin, and these flasks of wine, asher mileinu chadashim, that we filled, were brand new when we started out. V'ata hipaka'u, and behold, here, look at them. They are all cracked and dried out. Ve'ela salmotenu una'aleinu, and our clothes and our shoes, balu, they are worn out. Merova derech ma'od, from the vast places we have traveled. For those who are fans of Shakespeare, he thinks the Lady does protest too much. Okay, that famous line. Okay, so Vayichu ha'anashim mitzedam, and the men took their provisions, Ve'pi Hashem lo sha'alu, but they didn't ask Hashem. This is a mistake that they're making. Okay, they accept the story. Here they are. They were told, here's everything. This is why it's all dried out. Nebuch, it didn't work that well. So what does Rashi say? Ve'yichu ha'anashim mitzedam. Kiblu. Where's Rashi? Rashi disappears. Okay. Kiblu divreihem shesadum b'fihem. They accepted their words, and here's where Rashi uses the language against itself. Shesadum b'fihem, because they tricked them, they hunted them with their mouths. That's what when I say tzayid b'piv, I am tricking you with my language. I'm tricking you.
Oh.
That's why when it comes to Esau, it says he was tzayid b'piv. He knew he would give food to his father. That's what they say. That's how they would translate, I believe, in English. But it's in the Rabbi says what doesn't mean that he literally would give him food. It means he would ask him questions to make himself sound like a righteous person, and one who cares about halacha. But here we're seeing the same sort of situation, where they gave him sayed. They took from their seidam, from their food, which means they accepted what they were saying, and that's something you have to keep in mind. That's what I said. The language is strange. Seidah, and again, you wouldn't get that in English. I'm not even sure how they just say provisions. I'm guessing in English.
Well, it says they accepted their deception.
I'm saying them, but it's that. By the way, he's translating it by Rashi. That's not a good translation. It's a good translation as far as Rashi is concerned, but it's not valid.
It's not literal.
It's not literal. Thank you. It's not literal at all. Okay. So where is it? Okay. So let's go back a little to the Malbim and see if there's anything that we missed, because that's really what's going on. Okay. We started at 10, so he starts with 11. So the Vayomer Eleinu Zekenenu B'Kol Yospei Eretzeinu. So the Malbim explains that when it says that our elders and the inhabitants of our land told us to go to you, and for this purpose we are sent, whether it be from the entire populace, or whether it's from the Zakenim, the elders who are leading us, all of them said to us, go and meet them and say to them, which means that to say to the entire populace of the Jewish people, Achashu Berit Daiti, after that they are part of this covenant of the religion, and in this matter we say we are your servants. Why are we your servants? Al Yideshu Tekabulenu Bedat. Bedat Emunah. Why do we become your servants? Because we accept upon ourselves the Jewish religion, for lack of better terms, your faith and your Torah. And with this, Kartulana Brit. So then, for those reasons, let's make with us a covenant. We're willing to accept upon ourselves everything. And then it says, after they accomplished, after they were successful in removing the suspicion, and to remove the doubt that was in the hearts of the Jews upon these people, Hosifu lahavi raya mechayevet al hayota me'eretz merachok. They started to bring a proof that they were from a far away land. So first they had to get rid of this feeling of distrust. Once they felt they accomplished that by saying that we are your servants and that we want to accept upon ourselves your whole Torah. Now they try to reinforce the other part of the lie. namely that they're coming from far away land. And that's why they said, this is our bread. Me'ed al davar, this testifies on what we're saying. And do not consider that already it was dried out the time that we left, because these provisions were new on the day that we left to come to you. And also our wine casks, and also our clothes. So what happens? Veichu Hashem. The man accepted the raya. The man took the proof. She'emet imahem, that the truth was with them. Mitzeidam hayavesh, from, and he takes this literally, from the dried up provisions. Varaya zot, and with this proof, he says, ha'eminu lehem, they believed them. V'gam shayucholim levared emet l'dei ha'orim v'tumim, and also that they could have, and this is the important part, they could have asked the Orim v'tumim, but the pasuk says, Epi Hashem, they didn't ask. They could have gone. In other words, here they are relying upon the testimony. They have a good story in their hands, and they're saying, why not? It sounds logical, everything sounds cool, and great. But the problem is, they could have easily checked it out with the Orim v'tumim. The question comes up though, when do I check with the Orim v'tumim and when don't I? If I'm convinced that it's from another country and not from the 7 nations, so why would I even bother to check with the Orim v'tumim? I mean, the Orim v'tumim is like going to the president for everything. You're not going to the president for every single thing you want to do. Assuming that the president is the president, but in our system, I don't always go to the boss. I go to the manager sometimes. The manager tells me what they want to do, and I don't have to go to the boss. That's why the boss made the manager. So the boss made, in this case, God being the boss, made Joshua the general. He has his Sanhedrin. There's a whole system here. Why, if it sounds good to everybody, and they're proving their point that they went from a faraway land, why would I think that I should ask Orim v'tumim? It's not like there's from the 7 nations where I have to ask. That's an immediate thing. But here, it was a good trick. Good ruse, fine. So, but they are condemned for this.
I would think that because they do not know these people, they should check.
Why? Again, they gave a good story.
It's a good story. That's how you get to see.
Remember, you're the reader. You're the reader sitting here knowing the end. But if you were there at that point, would you have felt, wow, we should go through the whole thing of going to the Orim v'tumim?
Must have been an awfully perfect deception. Because usually in an deception, you're going to have some kind of flaw in there that you can pick out.
Possibly, but think about how many times, through our history, by the way, how many times we've accepted things. You had people accepting Hitler's words, all these other people, anybody who's coming with a good story. We accept their words. We don't check it out. We don't, even though we have bells going off in our minds, we don't really check it out, and then we're caught. And then we say, in retrospect, oh my God, I would just have listened.
Self-deception.
Right.
Where you
Happened to me many times, I know that.
Where you hear what you want to hear.
Right. But like I said, it's interesting. On one place I could defend them. To say there was no reason to question this. It sounded like a great story. They seem to have proof of it. Mm-hmm. I have to. The only thing, and by the way, the flaw in logic, and that's why we really have to hear the story, is because we're accepting the premise that these were brand new bottles, that these were brand new clothes. When I first started out, that these were brand new shoes. We're not we don't even have it because we wouldn't lie about it. We would, and we know that it had to be new at one point in its existence. It doesn't just come out like this, right? So, and it would make sense that I'm coming from a faraway land that this sort of thing would happen. Fine, so I can accept. I'm willing to suspend my belief, but at the same time, knowing that you heard of all these miracles, knowing that people are trying to deceive us. On that side of the fence, you would say, are you crazy? We have to check out, we have to verify, what's the expression in America? Verify
to vet them or to
but
validate them?
it's an army term, to verify, and I forget what the term is, but it's blank and verify. Oh, it doesn't matter, I don't want to get stuck on it, but there's, I forget what it is. But that's what they had to do. They had an opportunity. So even though they would have thought, no, we don't have to check with the Urim V'Tumim, yeah, you should have checked with the Urim V'Tumim. That's the point. Even though you think that your logic is impeccable, go to the Torah. Go to the scholar, go to the rabbis, if you will. Go to somebody who's not going to be prejudiced, who's going to be able to get to the bottom of this. Okay, and that's really what we're learning from this story. That even though it sounds logical, the only reason it sounds logical is you're accepting a premise. You're accepting their premise. And who told you should? There's no reason to accept their premise. Okay. So, 15. V'yas lehem Yehoshua shalom. So, Joshua made peace with them. Vayichro lehem berid lechayotam. And he made a covenant with them to keep them alive. Vayishavu lehem. And he swore to them, and they swore to them, who? Nasi'ei ha'eda. The princes or the leaders of the people made an oath to them. Let's go back to this figure what's going on here very quickly. So the Malbim says, Hine, and when it says he made, Hine hagam shahayu mechoyivim lekabla, because they were obligated, as it were, to accept them. Gam im hayu yodim shehem mizayin amamen, even if they were from the 7 nations. Why? Because they accepted upon themselves the 7 commandments of Bnei Noach. And even with all that, they didn't do it properly. Why? Because they also were supposed to accept upon themselves a tax and servitude. Where is it going? Kibbutz Be'er, sometimes. So there they didn't accept it explicitly. Yeshua asalahem shalom below tonight, and Joshua made a peace treaty with them without condition. Shekarat lehem brit shezeh also below tasa, and so he made a covenant with them, and so he transgressed a negative commandment. Because then Nishma Yeshua shalom karat lehem brit. And with all this, he was careful not to make with them a covenant, rak l'chayotam, except to keep them alive, which means shelo lahargim, he didn't kill them. And on this covenant, the princes of the people swore to them. But they did not accept upon themselves the other matters. That in other words, they did not accept upon themselves that they would serve them. They all instead that they would keep them alive. So here you go. That was their mistake. If Joshua, in other words, listen to what the Malbim is saying. It's an amazing statement he's saying. The Tanakh took him to task. They didn't ask Hashem. Fine, he didn't ask Hashem. But what was Joshua's mess up? There was no problem. Even if they were from the 7 nations, we already learned that they could have accepted these people. Right? It was these people, the Gibeonites, or the Chumash, whichever one you want to make them, but the Gibeonites who were coming are saying, we heard that you were wiping everybody else. This is their reason. That's going to be their logic. Okay, we heard, so that's why we did what we did. But in the end, it wasn't true. That if they would have come to Joshua and they would have said, look, we accept upon ourselves Shiva Mitzvah, and we're going to pay tax, and we're going to serve you, they would have been accepted too, right? So that wouldn't be a problem to make a peace treaty with them. So what Joshua should have said to them is, I'm so happy you came to us. We don't have to kill you today. Baruch Hashem. Okay. We're going to accept your terms of peace treaty. The only thing we're going to demand is 2 more things. That you serve us, and you pay us taxes. If you would have done those three things, the story would have ended happily. There would be no problem. There would be no punishment involved. But because he didn't do that, because he accepted, you know what, we're going to make a covenant, but I'm a little suspicious still, so I'll just do it to keep you alive, not to kill you. L'chayotam. Nice treated like that, but not for anything else. You accepted the Torah. Who am I to say no to that? Okay, but that was his mistake, according to the Malbim. That he didn't go the extra step to say, let's act as if you're local, and let's get those three things. And when I find out by meeting your king, if you really are far away, he could make a ton out of that too. If I find out that you're really not from the area and that you're really from a faraway land, we can always negotiate the peace contract, not a problem. But until that point, I'm going to treat you like you were here. I'll accept your word that you accept our Torah and you want to do the mitzvah, 7 Noahide commandments. But at the same time, you have to also agree to this. If you agree to that, we're all set. If not, have a good day. We'll have a war.
Why is the covenant binding if it's done under suspicion, or if it's done under deception anyway?
Because they made a shvuah. They made an oath. Whenever you make an oath, you bring in God's name to it. Mm-hmm. When you do that, you're stuck. What happens is, because if I just think about it from what we call the Chilul Hashem point of view, a profanation of God's name. I swear to you by the name of God that I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Then I find out you're a liar. So I say, contract over. So the people say, not so easy. The fact that I'm a thieving, no good for nothing, everybody knew that. You made an oath in your God's name. Either you want to make everybody think that your contracts are worthless, like ours, and that's fine, but then we'll all just kill you, because there's never a peace treaty. Or you want to let everybody know that, no, when you make a peace treaty, you really mean it. And it's all and that's a sanctification of your God's name. So really, that's why they couldn't do it. Once they swore in God's name, it was over. They knew that they have been duped, but they couldn't do a darn thing about it. And that's why people got upset to them. We'll see. People get upset with them. Why'd you do this? Why didn't we check this out? Why didn't we vet it more? What was the big rush? You know, if there's really from such a faraway place, you don't have to make a peace treaty today. Okay, that's another thing. They're not coming to war against you, so don't worry about it. We have time. So that's what you have to think about. Okay, so now we're on Ted Zion. It says, Vayim Miksat Shaloshet Yamim. So it was at the end of 3 days. Acharei Asher Kartu Lehem Brit, after they had made a covenant with them. Vayishma'u, and they heard Kikarovim Hemelav, that really they were living in close proximity to them. V'kir Bohem Yoshme, and in his midst, in other words, in Israel, in that area, they lived. Okay, so, any questions there?
Do any of the commentators talk about how they heard or where they got the information that they were neighbors?
Yeah, we'll find out in a few seconds. That's the album. Anything else? I mean, yeah. You want to ask? Go ahead.
What did Jim say?
How they heard.
Yeah, okay, that's nice. Yeah.
Okay. My question would have been, why they hang around?
What? Oh, that same group, you mean?
Yeah, why they hang around? It seems that they hung around. I wouldn't want to hang around and make a covenant and run away.
Yeah. What are they up to?
Why are you sticking around? I mean, you got away with it, so why do they have a party? I mean, really, it seems that they're hanging around there. And why did it only take 3 days? You know, like you said, who asked?
So it makes me think, the 3 days, it may be one of Joshua's people was lingering around and heard them speaking. Why? That's the only way I can think of it, that they would have to find out.
Okay, so here we go. Here's the Malbim's explanation. It says, after they cut after they made the covenant, and once they could no longer retract, that's when they heard about it, that they were living in their midst, not like the Gergeshai, that were close in the beginning, and then they turned and they went to Afriki. They want to say that from the side that they were close, they were forbidden to make with the covenant. And mitzad and from the side they were living in this midst, he doesn't explain it. So he says they had to because from the fact they were living in the midst, and they did not need to they needed to accept upon themselves taxes and so on and so forth. So it doesn't say right away. He's not telling you right away when or how they found out. We're going to have to find this out. Apparently this goes in the story. Okay. So let's go. Vayisu. So here's at the end of a couple of days. Fine. 17. Vayisu b'nei Israel. So b'nei Israel b'nei Israel traveled. Ve'avohu el areihem ve'yom hashlishi, and they came to their city on the third day. Ve'areihem Givon ve'akfira, and their cities were Givon and Kfira. Ve'erod ve'keriot Ye'arim, they had a nice area of land here. Ve'erod and Keriot Ye'arim. V'lo hikum b'nei Israel did not fight them. Why? They didn't smite them. Why? Kinisbu'u lahem nesiyei ha'edah, because the princes of the people had sworn to them. B'Hashem Elokei Israel, by Hashem the God of Israel, Vayalinu ala Edah ala Nesiyim, and they complained on the whole congregation complained about the Nesiyim. It's your first time not the first time, but one of the many times we see people complaining against their leaders. Okay? So they complain about their leaders. Why? Because the leaders messed up. It's as clear as that. And so here he says again, let's continue on with what the Malbim is saying.
But it doesn't say complained against Joshua, which I think is interesting.
Why?
Because he was also involved, and he is the leader of the leaders.
Yeah, but the...
Or is he just included by the fact that they're saying leaders?
You could say it's included. That's an easy way out. Or you can say the other thing. Remember, who swore in the name of Hashem? It wasn't Joshua. Joshua just accepted them. The leaders accepted them with this oath of Hashem. So they're not so angry at Joshua, because Joshua had every right to accept anybody he wants, as long as they follow the rules. But when you're going to start swearing God's name, so that's the big problem. Okay, so so Malbim says, Lo hikum, Rodzul Lemor wants to explain that Israel ba'u el areihem v'rodzul hargam. Really, Israel came upon their cities, because they don't know who these people are, and they wanted to kill them. Because since they did not accept upon themselves taxes and tribute, taxes and servitude, the Perush explicitly, so they were held by the negative commandment of don't leave any of them alive. Now here's the question that you asked me, Mike. Truth is that the oath of the princes did not take effect on the people because it was a mistaken contract. Via levatil mitzvot Torah, and the princes nullified the mitzvah of the Torah. So that's one thing. Okay, my leaders make a covenant with you, which really goes against my constitution. Let's take it that way. Let's put it to American terms. It goes against our constitution to agree to what you've said. So really, we're not held by it. You made a contract. Who cares what you did? They're individuals. The fact that you're a congressman, the fact that you're a president, means nothing to me in reality, because you went against our sacred writings. At the same time, Kol Zeh, he says, Lo hikum mitzad, kinishbu nashiyah b'Hashem lokei Yisrael. With all this, they didn't smite them, because the leaders swore in the name of Hashem. Lo hinichum nashiyim b'pnei sheyeh chil Hashem, like I was saying. The leaders couldn't allow this, because that would have created a profanation of God's name. And that's why they complained. Not because they couldn't do it. The leaders had no right to make the deal. But the fact that they swore in God's name, they went that far, and now you're going to cause a profanation of God's name. That's something they couldn't allow. So they have to stand down. But they're angry because you made us go against the Torah, go against what God wants. Okay, fine. So Vayom Kol Hanasim. So all the Nasiim said, El Kol Ha'eda, to all of the congregation, Anachnu Nishbanu Lahem B'Hashem Lokei Israel, we swore to them by God's name, in the name of God, the God of Israel, Ve'atah, and now Lo Nuchal V'Ngo Behem, we cannot touch them. So he says, Vayom Kol Nasiim Amru I Efshat Shtaharogotam. It's impossible for us to kill them because we swore to them. Hashavu Haita B'Hashem. We swore in God's name, and it would be a Chil Hashem in this matter. Shagam Ki Ha'am Shvichim V'Shmor Ma Sheikashu V'Nasiyah Ida. And also the nation want to maintain what the princes of the people did. They weren't necessarily looking to break it. Not that they had to keep it, but at the same time they understood there would be a Chil Hashem, and they didn't really want a mass rebellion anyway. Okay, let's go on. So it says, Zot Nasa Lehem B'Hachayei Otam. This is what we will do to them and allow them to live. Lo Ya'aleinu Ketzaf, and then there won't be anger upon us. Al Shavua Asher Nishbanu Lehem, on the oath that we swore to them. Who are they concerned about, by the way, in that verse? Remember what I just said. This is what we will do to them and so that we can keep them alive, and there will not be upon us anger because of the Shavua, because of the oath that we swore to them. Who are they worried about? The people?
Themselves, the congregation. They don't want any wrath to be placed upon them.
From whom?
From Hashem.
Ah, good. Because otherwise Hashem will be upset that they nullified a Shavuot. Good. So the Malton continues. I'm just going to keep close to the Malton here, okay? So he says, this is what we will do to them. Since the Shavuot was only to keep them alive, and not that we should not have put upon them taxes and servitude, therefore we can fulfill our Shavuot. And we can also, by the way, fulfill the mitzvah of the Torah. Because we will be clean from the oath. And all you have to do is keep them alive, because that's all we swore to. And then there won't be divine there won't be anger upon us. Lo Yisuf Hashem, like I said, there won't be divine anger, and that's it. So now what they're saying is, okay, we messed up. It's true we messed up, but you know what? We're going to fix this up too. We're going to keep them alive. That's what's going to make the covenant. And then we're just going to charge them taxes, and we're going to make them servants. It's that simple.
So at this point, they implement the provisions of the covenant.
They're going to, yeah. And the people are going to gladly accept. It's not worth it to argue. Which is interesting, by the way, because you would think that they would argue. They would think, if I was them, if that was a Gibeonites, I'd say, stop the parade here. Mm-hmm. You guys messed up. We tricked you, it's true, but you guys messed up, and you made a covenant. And again, we're the no-goodniks. We're the heels of the history. We're the heels of history. No problem. We'll be the heels. But you're the face of God. You're representative. So you have to do good. And therefore, we made a covenant. You messed up because you didn't ask God. That's not our problem. We're not going to pay taxes. They don't do that. Well, we'll see that what they do. But it's interesting. They could. I never understood why they didn't. And Yechiu. So they said. So Nesiim said to them, Yechiu, they will live. The Yehiyu chot ve'etzim, and they will be wood hewers, v'sho'ave mayim, and drawers of water, l'chol ha'edah, for the entire congregation, ka'asher dibru lahem Nesiim, just as the Nesiim said to them. So what happens? V'yomer eleim Nesiim, ata be'eru divreihem, and now they're explaining the words, Eich yikaimu hashvua, how they're going to keep their covenant. How they're going to keep their oath. The et mitzvah the Torah, and also the mitzvah the Torah. They will live, uvezen nikim hashvua, and that way we're going to fulfill our mitzvah, our shvua. The yuchot ve'etzem, uvezen nikim mitzvah the Torah, and by making them hewers of wood, will also be fulfilling the mitzvah of the Torah. Keep a mesh and nishba'u la'chayotam, because that which we said we're going to allow them to live. Lo nuchal rak shelo yamitum. That was only saying we shouldn't kill them. Lo shelo yatilu aleim masbavdu, but it doesn't say we couldn't put taxes and servitude upon them. Gam lo teichashbu she'al kaponim hiya bezeh ka'orei brit. And also it should not be considered that we are as if we transgress the covenant. Brit Ava Imam, because we made a covenant of love with them. So how could we conquer them to be servants? So we can't do that, right? We made a covenant of love, so therefore we can't make you servants. So that's why we're just going to do the other. We're going to give you jobs. Hello, Nesiim Amru Lehem Techila. So the princess said to them in the beginning, maybe you're living in our midst. So how can we make that was the original argument. And there they say each person, each one is saying to himself, certainly their princes are talking. So that's why they said to them, as Sha'am Kanan Yoshe B'Kirbam, even that the nation of the Canaanites is living in their midst, Ein Kor Timberit, they are not allowed to make a covenant, Vehem Kizvu Uvritam Kosef, so therefore they deceived, and the covenant is a deception. V'Shavua Lo Hayarak L'Chayotam, and again, he's going back to this, he has to keep emphasizing, the oath was only to keep them alive. Umashkdu V'Yuch Ochotse and that which is said they will be wood hewers is Belashon Avar, is in the past, because you have, it says, if you look to the Hebrew, where was it? Va Yehiyu, remember, Vav conversive, and they were Chot ve'etzim. Not they will be, but they were. Okay, that's about conversive, that's what he's saying. So Rash Limor Sheme'atzmam Nihiyu Chot ve'etzim. By themselves, they will be the will make them Chot ve'etzim. Zen Nichla b'Mash Ketuv, and that's what is inclusive from what is written. Shedabru lehem, Nesiim, that which the Nesiim spoke to them. Sh'amru lehem ulai v'kirbi ata yoshev, when they said maybe you're living in our midst. Mavuar, which means sha'al zad seh v'chavil mas v'abdu. When they said maybe you're living in our midst, that meant automatically that if you're living in our midst, that you have to accept upon yourselves taxes and servitude. Since you were, and that was part of the agreement, that's how they're working it backwards. So that's why they can make them the chot ve'etzim and sho'avei mayim. Otherwise, it shouldn't work. The people should be rebelling against that. But saying, no, we gave you a hint to that already. So now we're keeping you alive, we are fulfilling our Shavua, our oath to Hashem. That we fulfilled. The fact of the matter is, you were living in our land. You knew what the conditions were in retrospect, so we're going to make you into those roles. And that's how you fulfill the Torah's edict, and we maintain our Shavua. You don't like that?
No.
What don't you like?
Well, it's just that because they were so deceptive, it just kind of irks you, a little bit.
I hear.
That's not the way they'd handle it. You can talk to you.
No, down there we just grab the shotgun and go take care of it.
No, but then you're desecrating God's name.
Yeah.
You remember, it's not just you. It's not just Kentucky anymore.
I know.
It's like so many things we always forget.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing was there was a movie. It was a movie called The Sickness of King George that my wife dragged me to as a young on a date. I remember. And it's a cute movie about King George III, whatever he was. And he was sick. Something happened. He got sick. But the end of the movie is they have the whole royal family there, and the king says to the family, you always just have to put your face on. We are the royalty. Even though it means nothing anymore, because it was the country had changed, the royal family is always the royal family. So the same thing, we are always in that position where we are the royal family. If we would act inappropriately, even though the rest of the world is, we're not allowed to. Mm-hmm. Okay, and that's what the prince is saying. Even though by rights we don't have to listen. You lied. It was deception from beginning to end. So no, we are at this status, and you're at this status. If you think about it, we have a lot of, and I talked about this either yesterday or the day before, I forget what it was, but we have this concept that I think it was probably yesterday, in the class, we had a class yesterday, 2 days ago, where we're talking about people on, if I'm on level 1 and you're below me, you expect more from me, which is why when the president messed up, like Clinton did, okay, with Monica, when he did that, we wouldn't have cared if he was in, where did he come from? Kentucky, comes from
Arkansas.
We didn't care in Arkansas what the heck this guy did. Nobody cared. Okay, except maybe the people in Arkansas when he was a governor. But certainly when he was a guy on the farm, nobody cared. Okay, but as he gets higher and higher and higher, we suddenly care. Same thing with Obama. Nobody cared what Obama thought when he was a professor in Chicago. Yeah. Nobody cared about what he thought when he was running for the presidency. The only reason they cared is because he got the presidency. And then they cared about what he thought. And then they started to read his books. It was too late for my taste, okay, but it's not the way to run the system. But think about that. We only care about people when they get to a certain level. So the same thing here. If I'm at that level, if I'm the representative of God, and that's why I'm putting myself across, which is why Pat Robertson and all those other guys who get taken down really quick, because they do something stupid, okay? And then they yelled out at Tammy, whatever her name was her husband, Timmy Faye with her husband, Jim Baker. They all get taken down because they put themselves on the pedestal. When they were in the trailer parks, nobody cared. If they were ever trailer parks, but when they were on those little what are they called? Not trailer parks. When they put the tent up. Oh. What do you call them in the South when you put the tent up? Tent revival. Yeah. When you're in a tent revival, nobody cares. But when you hit the major stations, everybody starts. You're a household name. Okay, so that's what's going on here, and so they have to treat you better than you deserve. And we have to always remember that's why they're dealing with this. When the United States goes in and does whatever we do to the countries, that they expected more from us. By the way, if you think about Israel, with all that Israel's attacked, here every country around Israel has no rights for women, has no rights for anybody who disagrees with them. They will behead you as soon as look at you. If Israel stops you from walking into a church, mosque, or anything else, they are immediately condemned. Why? Because we expect more from you. You are the only democracy. I once heard it explained like that, and I said, you know what? I hear the word. I hear what they're saying. I disagree. But I at least could understand for the first time in my life why everybody's picking on it. Stop picking on the only place that makes sense. But it doesn't, because they are acting inappropriately to what we want, where we expect you to be. I can't help that, really, but I at least understood it. And that's what's going on here. We couldn't do anything. You tied our hands, but we have to try to get back to the Torah and make our people happy, make God happy mostly. So that's what we're going to do it this way. This is interesting. Because they could have just said, like I said, they could have said, game over, you lost, you lied, off with your head. And so we would have been condemned. It wouldn't be the first time, it won't be the last time. Okay. But it's, they said, no, we have to try to make this work. Okay.
There's a good contrast with the preparations before the Battle of Jericho, that even though it was by a deception, that everything had to be okay with God.
Right.
The processions and the strict word of the law. Right. And that just a short time later they could fall into this deception from somebody else. But
because, like I said, we always want to. Nobody really wants war. Nobody wants to fight. Everybody just wants to live in peace, and that's the end of it. If you let us live in peace, we'll be all set. But it's in the end, like I said, people make contracts. And if you think about it, you see this in most recent history with the PLO. PLO in Israel made peace years ago. Of course, peace is only one-sided. It was always on the Israeli side. Then you had with, if anybody's 46 minutes, I can say whatever I want. Okay. But if you just remember Israel with Egypt, the famous Sadat, Anwar Sadat, when it came to Israel, Israel relinquished the Sinai. It was supposed to be a demilitarized zone. And if you look in the history books, the day after they signed on a dotted line, the Egyptians pulled their tanks in. And the world said nothing. They immediately broke the treaty. And did Israel back off and say, no, you can't do that? No. They shut their mouths. Everybody. But right away, you're seeing that this is not a good peace partner. And that's why with every single time war would come up, Egypt would say, we're going to war against you with the other guys if you don't do blah, blah, blah. Because we want to give you a chance. But really, they were lies to begin with. So the same thing here. Again, we're always at that place where we're doing it and everybody's holding us to a level of you're representing God, therefore you must do it properly, regardless of what the rest of us do. Chav Beit. Let's try to get a little more in.
It's kind of interesting that this one word, Metzedam, provision, deception, trap. Is there a shorsh that goes with that? That's interesting.
Sod.
Okay.
Sod means hunt.
Hunt.
Sadi Yud. Sadi, maybe Sadi Yud Dalet, but it means hunt. Hunt or ambush. Okay, so I just want to turn the. Actually, I'll stop here. Chav Beit. We'll stop at Chav Beit. Okay. The telephone's ringing.
Is that Skype?
I don't know what it is.